We did an investor day this spring with Peter, the CEO at AIG. He publicly announced to the world that he has completely transformed how he thinks about underwriting with AI. He's using Claude to help figure out how to rethink the entire underwriting process. And what he's found is that underwriting now is 5 times faster. They've gone from about 75% to 90% accuracy. And I think this is the most interesting part, it's not just a much more efficient operation, they've actually increased the aperture of what they're willing to underwrite.
The views expressed in this podcast are the speaker's own and are not the views of This Week in FinTech or any other person or entity. The content provided in this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be construed as legal, business, tax, or investment advice or a recommendation, solicitation, endorsement, or offering by me or anyone else for the sale, subscription, or purchase of securities or for investment advisory services of any kind.
Kate Earle Jensen, welcome to today's episode of the This Month in FinTech podcast. It's awesome having you on the show today, live from Anthropic's offices here in San Francisco.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really great to be here.
Let's get started, I think, with the biggest question of how you spotted Anthropic. Everyone in the world, everyone in my circles wants to work here, wants to work at some of your peers, but you called your shot years before it was consensus. So let's take us back to summer 2023 or so. ChatGPT is barely 6 months old. LLMs still mean masters in law, at least to me. And Anthropic was nowhere near the prominence it is today. What gave you the conviction to leave Stripe, another truly generational company, and join Anthropic?
Pure luck. Truly, honestly, I'm sure I
appreciate
could
your
come up with
honesty.
a better answer there. No, I had 3 people in a 2-week period, completely unrelated to one another, all tell me I should have coffee with Daniela. So really? I give credit to them for finding Anthropic for me. Daniela and I had this incredible lunch, and I left that thinking I would never leave Stripe, but that it was interesting. But after that, I went into that lunch thinking that, and I left being just amazed by her passion, the mission of the organization, the ambition of her and Dario's together on what they wanted to achieve. And then when I really thought about whether or not I would go join, kind of tried to think like an investor, like yourself. Huge market. You could tell that this was going to be a thing, even in the spring of 2023. An incredible team. And then just a real opportunity for me to come and build.
And then, so let's talk about those first 6 months. You had a great career at Stripe. Probably couldn't have asked for a better training ground for high growth organizations. It's phenomenal. Yeah. You come to Anthropic, not a lot in place from the business side, and certainly a research forward organization. What did those first 100 days or 180 days look like from your perspective on getting this go-to-market motion going and commercializing Anthropic?
Well, you're right. I couldn't have had better training at Stripe. I mean, John and Patrick themselves, just their obsession with customers. Claire Hughes Johnson, the ability to learn from her, especially in the early days at Stripe as we were building so much. Jean DeWitt, I worked for Jean for 7 years. I am so lucky to have been able to learn from all these folks. And a lot of what they taught me was focus on customers, learn the basics, and be opinionated about where you think you can help and where you might not be able to help. So what did we do for the first 6 months? We tried to hire great people who were adaptable and open to working in ambiguity. That's really important. Yeah. This place changes all the time. The competitors, the products we sell, the team, the location, everything is changing just constantly around us. You really have to roll with that. But then most importantly, just listening to customers, figuring out the types of questions they were asking, the patterns we were seeing to think about how we could set ourselves up and go.
And now let's jump to today. A lot has changed these last few years since you joined. What exactly are Anthropic's core offerings and who are they serving? I love the Claude app on my phone, but I don't have it at the enterprise. How can we all interact with Claude?
Not yet. We don't have it yet at the enterprise. And thank you for being a Claude user.
Thank you. It's great.
I could talk about the segments and everything as we segment, but I think it's a little bit more interesting to think about how customers are investing in AI.
Yeah.
We think about 3 pillars when we talk about customers internally and where they're investing. All the way on the most ambitious end, these are companies that we call it internally AGI pilled. They're all in on AI. They're determined and already in many cases are AI native companies. Mm-hmm. So you can think about almost every funded startup today, big tech companies really transforming the software that they've built. increasingly industry companies thinking about how they're going to completely transform how they go to market with AI.
Mm-hmm.
Those companies almost always are building on top of our API and our SDKs. They're building custom things generally for their customers. Kind of the next one down, a little bit less ambitious, if you will, but still really important, are companies thinking about how to transform their teams or their internal processes. Well, sounds kind of boring, but when you really think about everything that these companies are doing, it's really exciting. Think about what a big insurance company is doing with their underwriting team.
Mm-hmm.
Or think about just anyone using Harvey for their legal team.
Right.
A lot of what is happening here is some companies are building custom solutions. Some companies are coming and trying to use something really off the shelf that's purpose built. And there are a lot of application layer companies in the ecosystem solving a lot of these problems. Mm. Hopefully most of them, and many of them are powered by Claude.
Right.
And then a little bit more simply, but no less important, is how do you have companies help your direct employees? We have solutions Claude for enterprise. We have Claude Code for developers trying to be more efficient. And very recently, we just released Claude for financial services for anyone in the financial services industry or who works in a finance team at any other company.
Yeah. And I want to jump into that. But first, let's help the Anthropic story come alive a little bit with a case study, maybe of one or two of those examples. Can you name, maybe at the enterprise level, someone that is using Anthropic and Claude and how it's helping transform their business?
There are so many companies. So one that comes to mind, we did an investor day this spring with Peter, the CEO at AIG. And he publicly announced to the world that he has completely transformed how he thinks about underwriting with AI. I don't know if you saw this.
I actually did not.
No. It's really interesting. And his level of ambition is just really fun to be behind. He's using Claude to help figure out how to rethink the entire underwriting process. And what he's found is that underwriting now is 5 times faster. They've gone from about 75% to 90% accuracy. And I think this is the most interesting part, it's not just a much more efficient operation. They've actually increased the aperture of what they're willing to underwrite.
Interesting.
Because they can get much more creative.
Right.
They're much faster, and pattern recognition is easier with the LLMs. They can actually change what they are willing to underwrite for the business. It's kind of a trifecta. It's really exciting.
Yeah. And then I'm curious, as I mentioned earlier, like the applications of Claude are pretty much only limited by imagination. How did AIG come onto your radar? What was the genesis of the partnership?
Like so many real traditional enterprise relationships, it's an executive who is really, really excited about the potential of new technology. In this case, Peter himself. He and Dario met in Davos this January.
Heard of it.
As many CEOs do. And they had this fabulous conversation. And one thing that was really interesting about that conversation is Peter asked, what do I do? How should I think about this? Where can I go? He knew that there was something that he really wanted to work on. And then he was very motivated to move very quickly in testing a few different things. And there's so much going on in that organization that's really exciting. This one in particular, I think, is already transforming how they operate.
Yeah. And have you seen financial services as maybe the largest uptake industry, or are there other ones that have really caught your radar over the last few years?
In our more traditional enterprise industry segment, financial services and healthcare are two that are just moving the fastest. If you think about where LLMs are really great at and really primed to transform, it's companies that probably deal with a lot of paperwork,
right? That
have massive amounts of information that need to be distilled as a core part of their business operations, and generally have a lot of people.
Going off that, you recently launched Anthropic for financial services, climbing to the application layer, as everyone was making a lot of noise about. And really, Anthropic's, at least from what I saw, first truly verticalized solution.
Yes.
What was the inspiration for building this? And of course, from at least what I saw, going after, kind of the investment research part of the finance stack.
It's hard to build a generalizable application that feels pretty horizontal if the most important thing being input into the models is highly internal and custom data.
Right.
So you have to think about industries and places where actually big external data sets are quite important for the day-to-day job. And financial services, again, it's a pretty natural fit. You think about S&P data.
Right.
You think about just anyone's quarterly reports, annual reports that they're publishing. sources for a lot of those. We've partnered with a whole bunch of different companies, including Databricks and Snowflake, to bring in that proprietary internal data so that anyone working with Claude for Enterprise and Claude for Financial Services is a specialized version of Claude for Enterprise, can have access to all that data that really matters all in one spot.
And I do have to give a shout out to Thomas at Delupa, who's also a big part of your partnership there. His data is phenomenal.
Fantastic to work with. His data is amazing.
Yeah. As someone who has spread a lot of comps in my day, I wish I had Delupa when I was my banking days. He's great.
It was actually one of the number one most requested integrations.
I'm not surprised. It's very good. So I guess our listeners will be checking out Delupa after this episode.
And you asked how we got there. We just listened to customers.
Really? So they
the same set of requests saying I don't know if you are familiar with MCP. So we released that in November, December of last year. We released it for something internal. We had no idea it would really take off once we open sourced it. We thought it might be interesting for a few people.
Right.
But it turns out model performance is only as good as the context you give it. And having a standard for bringing context into the models is pretty helpful. And so this MCP standard that we released ended up being really popular. And we heard from companies over and over and over again that they wanted the same information to be brought in.
Right.
How can I get my Databricks in there? Data from Databricks, from Snowflake, from Delupa.
Right.
And financial services, we heard the same requests over and over. And that's why we brought the Cloud for Financial Services solution together. Got
it. And then as you thought about, building out your team for this go-to-market strategy, naturally, a lot of FIs already use Anthropic's broad suite. But how did you think about actually the hard part of getting this into market, especially when a lot of FIs want that, more handheld professional services style approach with any implementation?
Well, I can't pretend we're perfect at this. We just released this thing about a few weeks ago. We're still figuring out. It's been incredible, the interest and the demand.
Yeah, I took a demo as well a few weeks ago.
What did you think?
I loved it. It was great. It's hard. I spend a lot of time in fintech. I do a lot in venture and early stage. I have seen over a dozen solutions, all promising the same thing. And everybody looks very good on the demo, right? We can build your comms table, a custom research report, an IC memo, a DCF with WAC, and everything is cited. And so to me, it's, well, why did Anthropic choose to build this when it seems like such a competitive, crowded, almost lower value space?
It's almost to show the art of the possible. Look what happens when you train a model specifically to be able to use Excel. Look what happens when you actually bring all these data sets together and you can analyze everything that you needed without needing to have the proverbial 100 tabs open to put them
right.
Which we've all been there, right? Yeah. And so it's a way of showing what's possible, but also, again, just really feeding a need that we just heard over and over and over from customers saying they were interested in something like this. So we built it.
Going maybe a level deeper on this, how do you manage the push-pull that naturally arises of being the foundational model for so many applications building on top of you? And now you are starting to verticalize and build application layer companies that may end up competing with some of your customers.
Yes and no. Our focus has always been on enterprise and on being infrastructure. So the vast majority of our business today is these companies building custom, exciting things on top of us. And then, like I mentioned earlier, this idea that so much of that ecosystem will go solve really specific problems for a lot of other companies. We're definitely the place to go if you want something that's really close to the metal. People wanted access to Claude. Claude for Enterprise was an obvious choice. How do you just give someone access to the model, help them use it, help them understand how it feels? Claude for Financial Services, again, a fairly horizontal product that just solves a need to scratch an itch. We're probably not ever going to build the hyper custom application for exactly the certain use case.
Right, nor should you.
Nor should we. We'll provide the infrastructure that really helps someone else to go build that and make it amazing. And that's really similar to what we were doing at Stripe too.
And as you're going to these enterprise customers, what is still holding them back? So AIG seems like a sterling example of executives who are excited to adopt. Maybe not every industry feels that way. Some people still feel threatened by AI and what it might mean for their business.
I wouldn't say a lack of ambition, but a lack of energy in some cases. You do need executives to be all in on this because it does require change management. Changing how you operate, changing how a whole function in your business operates, takes a lot of work. takes a lot of energy. It also is the case that a lot of companies need a lot of handholding, technically and on change management. And so we're working a lot with SIs, consulting firms, et cetera, to go effectively increase our own capacity to help support that much more fully.
And so you laid it up for my next question thank you, on SIs. It's this crazy web of partnerships with Deloitte, Accenture, all of the big four, and then also Amazon, Google, and other folks. How are you, especially in go-to-market, managing these partnerships, and what does it look like?
Crazy web is a really good description. No, but I mean, our primary distribution partners have always been Amazon and Google. We serve up our models through Bedrock and through Vertex, and we have a one-party API as well.
Right.
And when companies have already invested a lot in a particular cloud, it's a really natural place to go get access to these models. The beautiful thing is Amazon and Google for many years now have been building up a huge ecosystem of SI partners, people who can help. And so we are very fortunate to be able to benefit from that. A lot of that has already been built out. Then, of course, we spend time with them directly thinking about what custom solutions can we put together, how and where are you a great fit for a particular set of customers, where might we need the most help. And so we have our lists of top partners, and we work with them on very specific things.
Now, my old boss, Michael Grimes, who your team has met in the past, used to have a saying that he would always evoke anytime we talk to enterprises about partnerships: same pillow, different dreams, which I actually love. It's great. How does Anthropic, or you as a go-to-market leader, balance that with Amazon and Google, who have attempted to launch their own models, their own products, and then also consultants who want their own, big piece of the pie and their own solutions?
This market is so big. I remind the team of this every day. They're never in the history of great enterprise partnerships have they not been competitive somewhat.
Right.
I think the good news is no matter who you're talking to, everybody just wants to help the end customer and figure out what they need. And in a market evolving as quickly as this one, everybody is still figuring out exactly what they need, including the customers themselves. So in my mind, the more help, the better. And so we all actually cooperate quite well while we figure out this crazy world that we're all living in right now. I
see why you're leading go-to-market. That was a very nice diplomatic answer.
It's true, though. I mean, you think about it, and you sit down with a CEO, an SI, and a cloud partner of ours, which is unusual. We do have these meetings all the time where everybody's in the room together. We get comments from CEOs all the time about how unusual and how valuable it is for us to actually show up together and talk to them as one. And when we ask questions, everyone does come with a different point of view, and it ends up actually being really helpful for those customers to figure out exactly what they want and what they need in terms of help.
And then when you're sending a representative from Anthropic there, who are you sending? And are they verticalized? Are they focused on an industry, a product? Like, how has your go-to-market team been set up internally to manage this?
Sure, you can imagine on day one, we weren't verticalized, the four of us. We just answered the phone whenever we could. Now we are. So now we have in the United States, we have a startups team working with mostly native AI startups, hopefully building on our infrastructure that they're bringing to market. We have a digital natives team. It's like a little boring, but you're seeing in the weeds how we think about our go-to-market in a lot of ways. Digital native companies are basically startups from 10, 15 years ago that got really big. Stripe is a great example of one.
Absolutely.
They have a massive footprint of mostly software that they've built, and now they're trying to make that software AI native. And then we have more traditional enterprises. And in there, we've verticalized. Again, financial services, healthcare, life sciences. And we have a list of others that aren't quite teams yet, but we're starting to specialize and understand what the most common use cases are.
And perhaps one of the most common use cases I've seen is the Claude coding agent and Copilot. The growth has been pretty much unlike anything Silicon Valley has seen from any product. Can you talk about the genesis of this product and when you all realized you had such incredible product market fit over the last few years?
We always knew that Claude was probably going to be good at code because of the skills that we were building into Claude all along. So if you think about what makes Claude great at coding, it's the ability to look across and understand really complex systems. It's always something that we thought was really important. Then you think about the ability to be high fidelity across massive context.
Right.
Again, a massive code base. This is really important. And then the ability to follow instructions very carefully and thoughtfully and produce structured outputs. Again, this isn't just about coding, but it is why Claude has ended up being so good at coding. Mm-hmm. And you're right, it's been a magical moment when Claude finally was intelligent enough and all those pieces came together and it really could code autonomously. Mm-hmm. And Claude Code is a really natural extension of that, that skill.
Has anything in the usage patterns that you've seen emerge really surprise you or shock your team?
With code specifically or generally?
Code specifically, and then we can go more generally.
I think the thing that has been most fun about Claude Code, particularly in the enterprise, is because you don't have to be technical to code. It has unlocked all this innovation everywhere. We just last week on Friday had a big go-to-market internal hackathon where we had 10 different teams come together and they Claude Code, using Claude Code, designed different things that we should do. One was a capacity allocation product that they built. Another was, of course, a robot to fill out your Salesforce for you.
Always the number one feature request.
The salespeople really want to happen and make easier for them.
Right.
They went and were able to build it themselves.
That's awesome.
And we see that actually. We encourage companies when they're adopting Claude Code to deploy it a little bit more broadly than just their engineering team and just see what happens. And that hackathon vibe, that innovation has been really fun to see.
That's awesome. And then what about more broadly? You have this amazing seat at broader Anthropic where you see all of the products, all of the verticals that are adopting it. What are some of the most interesting observations you've seen that maybe us on the outside of these walls haven't been able to witness yet?
Again, that idea that so much of the innovation is coming from just crazy ideas internally. Crazy ideas. We at Stripe, we used to have a Slack channel called #CrazyIdeas.
Love that.
Here, everything feels like a crazy idea, so we don't have that specific channel, but we do these Claude Code hackathons all the time internally. And like I said, we encourage companies to do that too. Mm-hmm. How do you get someone who may think that their job is quite toilsome to go invent something for themselves?
Yeah.
And actually, a lot of those end up being the use cases that they do bring to production. Mm-hmm. And that's just kind of fun to see.
And then something that comes up a lot when everybody has access to building tools is the lack of competitive differentiation. Mm-hmm. Something that we think about a lot from the investor seat is, what is Anthropic's competitive differentiation over time as a foundation model? And then, of course, all the applications and other products that you're building. As you think about Anthropic's positioning today in the market, what is the competitive advantage over the next 10 years?
I think our competitive advantage is building on those skills that I talked about. The ability to take in a lot of context, the ability to actually have high fidelity thinking through all of that context, the ability to follow instructions really well. This is especially important for agentic systems, to structure outputs and have outputs follow really specific instructions. Again, you think about what financial services companies need, what life sciences companies need. That specific instruction following is so important. The other side of it that we haven't actually talked a lot about, which I'm a little surprised by, that's on me, is AI safety.
Of course.
Big enterprises, especially heavily regulated industries, but also the startups of today and tomorrow, really do care that we are focused on AI safety and are determined to make sure that this whole transition through AI goes well for everybody. Mm-hmm. We spend a lot of time talking to executive teams about this.
Right.
What does it mean for us to be safer?
Right.
What does it mean for us to have such a focus on safety? It's really core to our DNA. It's core to the mission that we have at Anthropic. Right. And when we think about how does this actually manifest, it's a whole bunch of different things. It's Claude's character, reduction in hallucination rates. Mm-hmm. It's the work that we do on interpretability, which we haven't commercialized, but as the go-to-market leader, I hope we will find a way to help others see inside these models in the same way.
I've loved the reports.
There's just so much investment that we've been making all along the way on AI safety. And that is a real differentiator for us, and people trust us.
And I think a phrase that I remember from the earlier Anthropic days is that constitutional AI. And so what has that looked like in market? Have you seen that really resonating in market? Because you would think AIGC CEO says, listen, I don't really want to know how the sausage is made. Just get me awesome underwriting and we're good.
How the sausage is made is something that people are really interested in. And then how the sausage machine is running is the interpretability part,
right.
which is what people are also interested in.
Yeah.
But how we think about training these models is something that people are really curious about. Bringing in our safety team and talking about constitutional AI, talking about how we do train with safety in mind is something that really resonates with customers, partially just because we're open about what this technology actually is, and everyone is so curious to know more.
Zooming out a little bit, and we'll look forward. We're in 2025 right now. Let's look forward to 2028, 2030. I know it's nearly impossible to predict, but what do you hope Anthropic looks like if we sit down again in 4 or so years to talk about the business?
I hope Anthropic is the infrastructure that's powering most of the AI applications in the world and most of the custom agents that companies will inevitably build for themselves to virtually collaborate with the people who work at those companies. I think if you look around, everyone will have Claude as their collaborator. And Claude, their collaborator, Claude, will be collaborating with systems that are powered by Claude.
Yes.
And then in a perfect world, we've provided tools for CEOs and for individuals to feel comfortable understanding what all of those different AIs are doing and having an ability to look inside and feel confident that things are going well.
And now I want to talk a little bit about you as a leader and how you're scaling this team underneath you. So hiring at Anthropic has been pretty unbelievable. The team is growing extremely fast with a very high bar for talent, at least from what I've seen from my broader network of people that have joined. It has a lot of the same undertones as Stripe of being that real talent, dense universe. Have there been any frameworks you've implemented for hiring or things that you're really targeting as you scale this team?
Absolutely. It's funny. The thing that I love most about how we think about hiring is our intense focus on the mission.
Mm-hmm.
If you are really motivated by being at the next hot startup, it's probably not going to be a great fit.
Right.
You have to actually care that our mission is to make AI great for humanity, and that we are going to sometimes, in some cases, make really hard trade-off decisions about doing what's right.
Right.
And so we have a culture interview that everybody goes through.
Oh,
and it's a really unique interview. No, we have a elite team of people who are tapped to run this interview.
Get out of here. Okay.
And everybody goes through it.
And that's executives, or is it specific like talent leads who just do these cultural fit assessments?
It's people who have day-to-day jobs. There are several people in my team today who've been tapped for it. People who really exemplify our culture and really live the mission are tapped and trained to do these interviews.
Yeah.
So we really filter for that. Are you mission aligned? Are you mission oriented with the company?
Mm-hmm.
And then it's a lot of what we look for at Stripe too.
Right.
Can you operate with ambiguity? Can you show up and not have someone tell you exactly what your job is? Because guess what? Nobody has time for that. And it will probably change tomorrow. So can you figure out where you're best placed to actually make a big difference in the role that you're in? Mm-hmm. Can you understand the technology? It's a really heavily technical product.
That matters. Yep. Core
API. It's a very unique sale to sell an API versus something SaaS. My joke about APIs is they're internet Legos. You might just dump a huge box of Legos on the floor and say, build whatever you want. You might give someone a little bit more of like a Lego kit.
Yeah.
Something that has a few blue pieces and a few yellow pieces.
Right.
But you still have to be able to help them put that together and bring something to market.
Right.
So you have to be really creative, really technical, and really good at thriving in ambiguity.
And then, KJ, you've made it to the final part of the episode, which is the rapid fire question round.
Okay,
so
I'm ready.
Handful of questions here, some about AI, some a little bit more personal. A couple, actually, I'll start with one on parenting. Advice for working parents who both have high intensity jobs and still raising kids.
Be yourself. Your kids are proud of you, even when they're really little. Own that you made the decision to do that, because it is a decision and it's a hard decision to make. But if you've made the decision, own it and be proud of it.
Love that. And then going to vibe coding, what is the coolest thing that you've vibe coded to date, if anything?
This is so lame, but I'm a sales leader. So I vibe coded away for Claude to check all the dashboards that I really like to look at and then summarize them for me. Mm-hmm. It's actually quite helpful.
I was going to say, is that really that
good,
helpful?
Tough questions and forecast calls.
Good. Love that. All right. So you have kids. let's say they turn 18 next year, what are you advising them to do with their professional careers in this new AI age?
This is our biggest joke. Anytime we go to an enterprise dinner, or we host an enterprise dinner, we'll do 15 minutes of use case talk or model talk or new competitors. And then within 15 minutes, the conversation always shifts to what should my kids study in college?
Yeah, exactly. So what should they?
It's a good question. The technology is changing so fast. I don't think you can go wrong with anything that helps someone to think critically. And again, like we talked about with what do you look for in hiring? How can you teach someone to be flexible, to adapt to change quickly and think critically?
Yeah.
And help to learn new things, new technologies all the time. Because I think the pace of innovation isn't going to slow down from here.
Definitely. All right. And then this is a fun one. You've worked for two sibling co-founder stars with Patrick and John Collison, now Daniela and Dario at Anthropic. First, can you compare and contrast the two?
Oh, stop. Don't make me do that. No, but I will say I'm so fortunate, and I think I really like working for siblings.
Okay,
the dynamic is amazing.
Because a lot of times people think that's a little bit crazy. I don't want to invest or work for siblings or a married couple.
Think about how beautiful it is that you can have really hard conversations, and then you still have to go to holiday dinner with your parents.
Yeah.
No, I think it allows for just a much more honest discourse about what's working and what's not, and then inevitably there won't be that much conflict because, like I said, you have to go home and have dinner with mom. So.
Contrasting your time at Anthropic versus Stripe, what has been the biggest adjustment you've had to make the last few years in joining Anthropic as a leader?
The pace of change. At Stripe, we moved so fast. We were so proud of it.
I was about to say, I thought you all moved pretty fast there.
We did, and we were so proud of it. And it was an industry that most people could wrap their heads around. And we were the innovators in that industry. Here, the world is shifting underneath us all the time and figuring out what to pay attention to, what is signal versus noise, how to stay informed as much as you can. It takes much more effort.
As a leader, what is a mistake that you make over and over again that you're still hoping to improve on?
A mistake I continue to make, honestly, is not trusting my gut.
I like that one. It's very poignant.
And I think often we do know if we have a feeling about how we're approaching a particular account or how we're coaching a particular person or how a team is functioning in a specific way where like if you just shifted it a little bit, everyone would be happier and probably more effective. How you're supporting different functions, that sort of thing. Often your gut is right.
All right. And now last couple, 3 words to describe Anthropic's culture. What would they be?
Kind.
Kind is the first one. Okay.
Intellectually honest.
Compound word-ish. Hyphenated.
Hyphenated, exactly. Yeah. Rigorous.
And then last question, who is your dream guest to hear on a future episode of the podcast? Doesn't have to be fintech. We've done plenty of non-fintech guests.
Have you invited Alex Karp yet?
From Palantir?
Yeah.
No.
He's really interesting. What Palantir is doing, both on the commercial side and in public sector, is really fascinating. I think you probably have some cool hot takes.
That'd be aiming high. I would love to have Alex on the show. Talk about center of the universe. Absolutely. Great. Well, KJ, thank you so much for coming on today's episode of This Month in FinTech podcast. It was great having you on and sharing Anthropic's story with the world.
It was great to be here.